This is the history part of chapter 16, and it refers to some things you'll learn more about in music history. The early troubadours and trouvères, and in Germany they were called Minnesingers or Meistersingers, and these were people who either worked for a court or traveled from court to court, providing musical entertainment. So this two-part form emerged from a medieval type of form, well, medieval period form known as bar form. And this was a song form that the Minnesingers, which were the aristocratic poet-musicians from the 1100s to the 1300s, or the Meistersingers, who were middle-class poet-musicians from the 1300s to the 1500s, used for their songs. We have forms for pop songs now, too. Bar form consists of an A part, which is called the Stollen, which, that's lovely because Stollen is a good bread, that is repeated, in a B part called the Abgesang, that is not repeated. And as bar form developed, because things changed with time and use, the B part began to contain either a section or all of the A part, and thus has a character of our what we now call rounded binary form. In 16.6 is an example of the canzo, which resembles the bar form. Oh, they can't even give you a real bar form. This was written at the end of the 12th century and would have been performed unaccompanied. And not only is it, and it's not only not a bar form, it's not German. But it's got the Stollen, and, well, I suppose they used Latin back then. Just kidding, haha. Okay, the Stollen and the Abgesang. So I'll play with the repeats. And then they're showing you here that this is a repetition of the last part of A, which gives it that rounded binary form aspect where part of A returns at the end of the B section. The bar form continued into the Renaissance, although... So, medieval means Middle Ages. After that comes the Renaissance. It wasn't extensively used, but the two-part idea found its way into music of the German part song and the German Lied. It was during the Baroque period that they liked to use the two-part form extensively, partly because they had all these dances. So suites could have movements that were kind of long: the Allemand, Courant, Sarabande, Jig, the Minuet, the Bourrée, the Gavotte. And they like to use two-part form for these dances. And that, they got more elaborate, and only the sort of the skeleton of the older bar form could be seen. The characteristics of these two-part forms from the 1600s usually have no modulations. The first section often or usually ends with an authentic or a half cadence in the original key, and the second section ends with an authentic cadence in the original key, and the second section may or may not contain material similar to that of the first section. Then when you get a little bit further on, the late 1600s to the early 1700s, you might have the first section modulating to a closely related key, either the dominant or the relative major, if it starts in minor. The second section might start out in a new key but will modulate back to the original key. the first section will end with an authentic cadence in the key that it modulated to, and the second section will end with an authentic cadence in the original key. The second section often begins with the theme of the first section in the new key and contains material derived from the first section. Then when you get to the classical period, especially early classical period, they still use that two-part form a lot. But they they call it embryonic development sections at the beginning of the second section. Okay, what that means is you started to see the beginning of what became the full-blown classical development section. So you have a theme from the first section that could be repeated at the end of the second section in the original key, and this grew into sonata form. The use of the binary form continued through the Romantic period, but less so. You had, they just messed with everything in the Romantic period. Examples of binary form show up in Schubert, Hector Berlioz, Felix Mendelssohn, Georges Bizet, and Robert Schumann. Although examples of binary form can be found following the Romantic period and the Impressionistic period, it wasn't as much in use. And also, this is true of later periods. Although, Bela Bartok certainly uses a lot of two-part form. Hector Villalobos, Benjamin Britten. It happens maybe a lot of times in didactic music, music for teaching. And jazz and pop music very rarely uses two-part form. It's a little bit more elaborate than that. So you can read the summary yourself and the practice yourself, and just don't freak out, because this is the easiest form. The only complicating factor is when it's rounded binary form. That can be a little confusing because that confuses you sometimes with three-part form. So that's something you'll have to struggle with. But other than that, this is not the world's worst chapter. Good luck, people.